Hello, friends. Very wonderful and pious greetings of this enlightening evening to all of you. Today, I, Kunal Nagpal, am feeling immensely proud to address you and welcome you to this great economic forum, Nagpal Economic Academia, wherein today we are basically going to have a very delightful, insightful, and interesting discussion on the budget proposed by our Finance Minister, Dr. Nirmala Sitharamanji, on 1st February 2023 in the Parliament of India. Dear friends, it's actually a very well planned out and a very strategic presentation of the budget, which actually aims at securing the balance and also taking into consideration the optimum utilization of the available resources, helping to increase the overall effectiveness and efficiency of the economy as a whole. Very beautifully trying to attain the balance among all the economic parameters, essential economic parameters, and also ensuring that every component of the economy gets justice and attains development in a very well strategic manner. So, with this budget, India is all set to be $5 trillion economy, and also this budget very beautifully helps to envisage the dream and vision of our respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji to actually enlighten the fact of his vision to embrace the Amrit Kal for the Indian economy. And also, as we keep on propagating the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, this budget is also very wonderfully trying to give justice to this particular statement, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, wherein all the nations across the globe would get benefited immensely with our very intrinsic and very well laid out feelings of humanitarian assistance, compassion, and belongingness. So this is a wonderful initiative being taken by our respected ministries, and their main focus areas are actually fiscal consolidation, reducing the fiscal deficit to the level of 5.9%, and with the dream or with the goal to attain 4.5% fiscal deficit of the GDP by 2026. Next is the focus on capital expenditure to increase it at the maximum possible extent. Then it also throws light on the 4 emphasis points, that is empowering women, empowering tourism, and empowering the Vishwakarmas, who are the real artisans, helping to create the soft power of India through their craftsmanship. And then the 4th area is obviously green growth. A lot of initiatives are being laid out in a very well strategic manner towards the attainment of this particular objective, to make the economy greener, of actually decarbonizing the economy. And also it very well portrays that economic development and sustainable development, that is the net zero target, are actually the 2 objectives which go hand in hand. We have to work in a very parallel conjunction in order to attain both these objectives at the same time. Moreover, Industrial Revolution 4.0 is also a very important aspect to be considered, and the necessary provisions have been made in the proposed budget. And obviously, the area which interests which actually interests all of us, is the new income tax regime. And the basic focus of the government is to actually benefit the middle class people of the economy. And inflation aspect has also been taken into consideration. All of us are quite familiar with the fact that both CPI, that is the Consumer Price Index, and the Wholesale Price Index inflation have reduced considerably. So the inflation related steps to be taken when the things develop on the ground, and that has actually borne results. And the government has decided to release the wheat into the market, causing the price to come down. Moreover, a lot of emphasis has also been paid towards the aspect of agriculture credit. That is, substantial increase in the agriculture credit availability. So, my dear guys, budget is actually very rightly paying emphasis towards avoiding the populist measures in the pre-election year, and therefore prioritizes the long-term growth. And my dear friends, as we are quite familiar with the fact that we are actually aspiring to enter into a new era of holistic development, the budget has been prepared on the similar lines. So I would like to throw the light on these particular aspects one by one. First of all, let's discuss that how does the budget envisage respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's vision of Amrit Kal. Actually, the resolve to see India as a global superpower during the Amrit Kal is no castle in the air, as it might sound to the naysayers. It is actually a goal envisioned by the visionary Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, with a very formidable foundational basis and a meticulously designed roadmap to achieve the same. The budget tabled in the Parliament on 1st February on the advent of Amrit Kal actually reaffirms this point beyond any doubt. India today finds its place among the global leaders as the 5th largest economy in the world, surpassing Great Britain, and is likely to ascend to the 3rd place by 2035. Actually, in the last 9 years, India's per capita income and the size of its economy have almost doubled. On account of its excellent growth trajectory, the International Monetary Fund, that is the IMF, marks India as a bright spot on a dark horizon. It has also penciled in India's financial year 2023 growth at more than 6%, which is actually the highest among the major economies of the world. Despite the war and the residual effects of the pandemic, India is basically among the few economies with the lowest rate of inflation. This is really remarkable, really remarkable. And all the eminent leaders, economists, and international organizations across the globe have been appreciating India's position. That is, the economic parameters have shown very less fluctuation if we do the comparative analysis with those of other economies across the globe. However, this feat unusual for a still emerging economy, took immense courage and countless sleepless nights on the part of the Prime Minister. And actually, hard work has paid and is still paying and will pay off. And the only thing it requires is the cooperation of us, the citizens, to our respected leaders. We should acknowledge and appreciate their noble efforts, right? So, it was a time when the major economies threw the growth agenda under the bus to tackle the raging pandemic. India remolded its dreams to fit into the new dimension and charted its path thereon with the Atmanirbhar Bharat push while managing the pandemic deftly. This was actually dovetailed with the efforts made by the regime to get rid of the corruption, improve the health of the banking sector, get rid of the policy paralysis, promote accountability and transparency in the policy making, etc., in a bid to create a conducive business ecosystem. I repeat, this particular goal was the India's achievement with the efforts made by the regime to get rid of corruption, improve the health of the banking sector, get rid of policy paralysis, promote accountability and transparency in the policy making, etc., in a bid to create a very, very conducive business ecosystem altogether. The move finally paid off in a post-pandemic era as the foreign footloose capital flocked to the Indian stock market, abandoning the otherwise lucrative capital markets. The buoyant tax collection after the pandemic is another marker of the resilience of the economy. As on date, India garners 1.49 lakh crore rupees per month as the GST. India leaped ahead in one after another global rankings, surpassing the nations mightier in economic prowess. It clocked more than 70 billion digital payments in 2022, which is actually the highest in the world. Boosting of air connectivity made India the world's third largest aviation industry. Railways being taken to the remotest areas like Kashmir and Northeast made business in the Indian economy more luring by decreasing the landing cost of the products substantially. And my dear friends, this has very well been acknowledged by our respected President Srimati Draupadi Murmuji while addressing her first parliamentary session a day prior to the budget was presented, that is on 31st January 2023, wherein she mentioned that the aviation sector and the railway sector of our country has actually done a very commendable job. The new spreadsheet is to be seen in a continuum of earlier budgets that actually provided the economy with its much appreciated resilience. It is aimed at pulling massive investments and businesses by introducing a slew of disruptive measures. My dear friends, the budget pumps in major capital investment of 10 lakh crore rupees, increasing the outlay by 33%, which will actually fast track the implementation of the government programs such as Bharatmala, Gati Shakti, Parvatmala and Sagarmala. The highest ever capital outlay of 2.4 lakh crore rupees for the railways will actually help the Indian Railways increase its modal share and connectivity to the remote areas. Similarly, 100 transport infrastructure projects have been identified for the end-to-end connectivity for the ports, coal, steel, and fertilizer sectors. The proposed revamping of the 50 airports, heliports, and advanced landing grounds will actually enhance air connectivity to the remote areas. So, in a rather disruptive move, the budget also ushers in an initiative of the green growth. The major parts of this reform actually comprise the program of the incentives of alternative fertilizers, the proposal of 500 new waste to wealth plants, mangrove plantations along the coastline, and promotion of the battery storage systems. Standing true to the Modi government's principle of growth with responsibility, the budget actually provided for an outlay of 35,000 crore rupees to achieve the energy transition and net zero objectives, listing green growth among the 7 priorities of the government. Mission Green Hydrogen, which is hailed as one of the game-changing initiatives of the government in enhancing India's soft power in a global scenario holistically, gets an allocation of 19,700 crore rupees, leading to a further boost to the economy and therefore generating massive employment opportunities. So, keeping up the pace that India has already gained in the digital economy, the budget also pushes for the new economy by the way of building digital public infrastructure for the farmers, decrease of custom duties on the import of lithium-ion batteries from 21% to 13%, commodities except for the textiles and agriculture, and certain inputs for the mobile phones. So my dear friends, these moves will actually add a multiplier effect on already acquired gains in the new economy. The cutting of the import duty on the lab-grown diamonds throws open a new door of opportunities for India by way of creating jobs and capital. In addition to it, the extension of the tax benefits to the startups till 2024 will actually prove to be a turning point for India's innovation ecosystem, which is another very major component for India's holistic development to actually create miracles in terms of innovation, hence boosting the startup ecosystem in the economy, the aspect where India is already flourishing, and hence capitalizing on this particular aspect will further boost the overall prospects of India's economic development. My dear friends, the innovation ecosystem gets further assistance as the budget also envisages the launch of a unified Skill India digital platform, which will actually focus on formal skilling as per the demands, provide access to entrepreneurship schemes, and also link the job seekers with employers, including MSMEs. The budget also provides a big relief to the middle class taxpayers and lifts the threshold of income tax from 5 lakh rupees a year to 7 lakh rupees a year. So isn't it really a great sigh of relief? The changes in the income tax slabs and the reduction of the surcharge across all the segments will actually benefit the taxpayers immensely. Abiding by the guiding principle of Sahakar se Samriddhi, several steps have actually been taken to promote the cooperative sector. The budget sets the aim of setting up a national database for the cooperatives to ensure better policy making for the sector. It also provides for the creation of decentralized storage, which will be the world's largest grain storage program. The moves to set up 2 lakh multi-purpose cooperative societies covering the trades like dairy and fisheries in all panchayats will basically take the movement to the new heights. So, in a commendable move, it keeps the cooperative societies in the manufacturing sector formed till March 31, 2024 in the bracket of only 15% tax. It also provided tax relief of 10,000 crore rupees to the sugar cooperatives. Furthermore, the decision to cap the TDS on cash withdrawal to 3 crore rupees, providing a higher limit of 2 lakh rupees per member for the cash deposits and loans in cash by PACS and primary cooperative agriculture and rural development banks will enthuse the sector. These moves will help the cooperative sector immensely to contribute to the national growth. Therefore, the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's pragmatic and persuasive foreign policy and his diplomatic acumen make India's prospects in the global arena stand tall. India currently has 12 free trade agreements and the India-UAE CEPA is the latest one. We are working on several other deals. PM Modi's initiatives are actually leading to the restoration of the global supply chain in which India is likely to become a major player. So, the Amrit Kal budget takes quantum leaps, enabling seamless growth through the governance by initiating a global mission for millets, launching a dedicated mission for particularly vulnerable tribal groups and recruiting more teachers for 740 Eklavya model schools. This basically includes establishing 157 new nursing colleges, research initiatives in pharma, and a mission to eliminate the sickle cell anemia. Located in the middle of the broad principles of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, it actually disrupts the rural economy by setting up a 20 lakh crore rupees agricultural credit system for animal husbandry, dairy and fisheries sectors along with an allocation of 6,000 crore rupees in PM Matsya Sampada Yojana and 2,200 crore rupees in Bhagwani Yojana. These will not only boost the rural economy but also create the employment opportunities dramatically. One of the most encouraging aspects of the budget is that it ticks all the boxes of growth and welfare while keeping the fiscal deficit as low as 5.9% of the gross domestic product. It proves the fiscal health of the economy and also clearly indicates that with this inbuilt power of the economy, India will actually sail to its goal of becoming a global superpower in the Amrit Kal. Hence, I congratulate the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and the Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman ji for furthering an all-inclusive vision through this budget, which will not only lead India through the path of growth, but also welfare catering to the needs of both citizenry and business. So, my dear friends, the overall views have been presented so well that it fills us with great pride. The overall layout and with such a visionary mindset really assures us of our holistic development. And obviously, the resolve to see India as a global superpower during the Amrit Kal is actually no castle in the air, as it might sound to the naysayers. Now let's try to understand how this budget assures the perfect balance between the short and long term. our respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's government has laid out the blueprint for the Amrit Kal in the budget 2023. On the one hand, the vision includes modern technology, green growth, digital and physical infrastructure, modern cities, and artificial intelligence. On the other hand, it actually provides a path for strengthening India's traditional strengths like artisanal handicrafts and millets. The analysts said that though these measures by the government and the Reserve Bank of India will help control inflation in the long term, it will actually have a cascading effect on the market and the economy in the short to medium term. So, with an emphasis on investment in public infrastructure, our respected Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman ji not only addressed the immediate issue of increasing demand in a slowing world, but also clearly signaled the path through which India will become a developed economy. That is, a focus on infrastructure and also creating the conditions conducive for private investment. The 33% increase in the capital investment outlay to 10 lakh crore rupees and a total effective capital expenditure of 13.7 lakh crore rupees will basically have a multiplier effect, pulling in more private investment and consumption, pushing the growth and jobs. My dear friends, a critical element of the capital expenditure increase is that higher public capital spending is actually obtained by containing the revenue expenditure to a nominal growth of only 1.2%. So this actually ensures a lower fiscal deficit and therefore keeps the interest rates low. In the current environment, when the interest rates are quite high, this is actually one of the most important factors that will make the multiplier effect strong. Furthermore, enhancing the opportunities for private investment in infrastructure, providing the relief to MSMEs, reducing compliances, and decriminalization of the legal provisions will actually further crowd in private investment. A common business identifier, an entity DigiLocker, and a unified filing process as proposed will actually help reduce the cost of compliance for businesses. Now, to push the green growth, the Government of India has committed an outlay of 19,700 crore rupees to the National Green Hydrogen Mission. And this will also reduce the dependence on fossil fuel imports. Another 35,000 crore rupees is provided for the energy transition and net zero carbon emission targets. Energy storage is actually proposed to be formulated through a framework for pumped storage projects. So in order to accelerate this particular shift, the budget has also proposed a green credit program that will actually incentivize the environmentally sustainable actions by the respective companies. My dear friends, the budget also takes on the skill constraints being faced in health and education. While the earlier budgets mainly focused on spending on schools or hospitals, this budget actually emphasizes spending on the supply side, that is, on nursing colleges, medical research, pharma innovation, multidisciplinary courses for medical devices, teachers training, and the creation of learning material and libraries. Therefore, this budget puts very high priority on inclusive development, focusing on farmers, women, youth, and socially and geographically neglected sections. Therefore, this will allow us to explore the niche and premium markets that have been growing around the world and have recently become even more attractive in the post-pandemic world. The budget also proposes to unleash innovation and research by the startups and academia by providing the access to the anonymized data through a national data governance policy. My dear friends, Budget 2023 poses the right balance between the short term and the long term, between growth and redistribution, between investment and consumption, while enabling all of them in a very, very beautiful and strategic manner. Now, my dear guys, after having understood that how does the budget 2023-24 actually helps to attain the perfect balance between the short and long term, let's try to understand next aspect, that is how the salaried class has flexibility to spend, save and build security at the same time. And obviously, this topic, this particular aspect is going to fascinate various citizens across the country. My dear friends, India is an inexhaustible engine of economic development and opportunities. I repeat, India is an inexhaustible engine of economic development and opportunities. The union budget reflected the momentum and the potential that India has in a very, very brilliant manner. Stable, consistent, and inclusive, the budget this year was remarkable for its clarity, simplicity, and effectiveness. Three clear focus areas stand out. Firstly, enabling growth. As the fastest growing economy in the world, our GDP growth at 7% has actually shown incredible momentum. Around 10 lakh crore rupees investment in infrastructure, which really amounts to 3.3% of the GDP, will actually help set up a strong platform for growth for today and the future. The government's continued intent to increase the gross domestic product spent on healthcare by around 2.1% of the GDP, combined with efforts from the center and states, will likely bring the spends up to 2.5% of the GDP, enabling solid improvement on the core sustainable development goals, that is SDGs, on health. Allocation of 90,000 crore rupees for health basically represents a 12% jump over the last year, and hence is a recognition of the fact that health is actually very, very vital to the overall economic growth. My dear friends, the government's focus on infrastructure development, digitization, and reforms in the education and healthcare sectors will basically create a more favorable environment for the businesses to operate and grow in a holistic manner. Hence, this in turn will drive job creation and therefore help in stimulating the economic activity. So, this was truly a green budget. There was sustained focus on green energy, green mobility, green funds, and a resolute commitment to net zero, paying a lot of emphasis of our respected Prime Minister's vision to make India the net zero economy by 2070. Encouraging green behavior through the credits for individuals and enterprises will actually create a climate of awareness and desirable long-term effects. The National Recycling Fund will help in creating the circular economy, where the waste is basically treated as a resource. Now, the next aspect is equity, focused on empowering women, developing the skills of the youth, hence empowering the youth for favorable demographic dividend, providing the funds for developing the tribal infrastructure and improving the employment opportunities. The budget did a lot to promote the notion of equity and to give every Indian, I repeat, to give every Indian the opportunity to reach their full potential. Hence, this budget actually plays a very, very major role to attain the balanced development, to attain the balanced developmental goals of all the components of the society, leaving no one behind. So, to upskill the country's youth for domestic and international opportunities, 30 advanced skilling centers are envisaged. So, this will unlock highly skilled jobs for our young demographic. Hence, very, very beautifully paying very, very beautifully giving the justice to the statement that the real demographic of our country, which is the main human capital or the future asset of the nation, thus giving a lot of emphasis towards justifying our main goal of the holistic development, that is the human resource development of the nation. Furthermore, addressing the need for trained healthcare talent, the proposal for 157 new nursing colleges co-located with the existing medical colleges will actually help bridge the gap and therefore provide a trained pool of nurses for the growing healthcare infrastructure in the country. My dear friends, this is actually a much needed step towards the overall strengthening of our healthcare system, which was put to the test during the pandemic. And it's really a great moment of pride to let you know that India performed very, very extraordinarily well during that particular health crisis, which recently struck the entire globe. India was not only able to self-sustain itself, but we were able to provide millions of vaccines to our friends across the globe, very beautifully justifying the statement, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And this is a wonderful example towards the entire world that India actually excels in its basic feeling of compassion and humanitarian assistance based on a very strong foundation of the global family, a sense of belongingness, that is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. My dear friends, the building blocks are beginning to come together to position India as a leader in the futuristic medical tech, devices and high-end manufacturing and research, including building the skill sets that are actually required. Additionally, the efforts and incentives to make artificial intelligence in India and make artificial intelligence work for India is an exponential approach. The benefits of encouraging AI, that is artificial intelligence in healthcare, via the Centers of Excellence, coupled with firm actions to support ICMR labs to basically expand the research and development gamut, will enable us to find the path-breaking solutions that actually reimagine the healthcare delivery for the future. So, my dear friends, the aspirations of India's salaried class people are very, very well addressed through this budget. With more retained earnings, they now have the flexibility to spend, save, and build security for their future. So isn't it really fantastic that our main area of focus has been the middle class men, who are the persons involved in the salaried class. So overall, this budget was very, very well anchored in reality, transparency, and achievable goals. All of us are quite familiar with the full form of the acronym SMART, that is SMART goals. S, specific; M, measurable; A, achievable; R, relevant; and T, that is time bound. So this budget is an excellent example, very well justifying the definition of the SMART goals. And these are not only the holistic goals of the nation, but also the holistic goals of the entire globe. As you are quite familiar with the fact that India is among one of the fastest growing economies across the globe, and our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has very, very far-sighted approach for our country, that it will be the global leader, because he has very, very long-term strategic plans in terms of excelling in terms of manufacturing, services, and also to modernize our agricultural sector, paying a lot of emphasis towards the overall digitization of the economy, making India #1 in the world is our plan and our vision. So, my dear friends, as I said, that this budget was anchored in reality, transparency, and achievable goals. So it was not about the statements of largesse or relief, but about reducing the burden of compliance and of doing business, about increasing the prospects of enhancement of ease of doing business, ease of living, about transparency and building synchrony with what's emerging, that is technology, digital pathways, sustainable cities and behaviors, paying excellent justice to go green. Thus, our national goals are very well in synchronization with global goals. And all this is existing in the times of very, very tough global times, where the entire global economy is going through a very, very turbulent phase. Even then, despite of all these factors, we are being able to be so strategic, so long-term oriented, keeping in consideration that we are still the emerging market, we are still the developing economy, but the firm will of our respected visionary leaders, our eminent economists, our dignitaries, is actually helping us to realize our self-potential. And their beautiful concept of Atmanirbharta, and these things, these particular efforts are helping us to realize our true potential. And therefore, it is very truly said by them that this is the Amrit Kal. So, while many see the budget as a roadmap, but my dear friends, I would like to tell you that it's a compass, not only the roadmap, but it's the compass. All of us are quite familiar with the term GPS. Yes, it's a wonderful GPS for all of us. Now, you would be in a position to actually realize that how beautifully balanced our budget is. And obviously, India is set to be the $5 trillion economy in no time. My dear friends, terming the budget beautifully balanced, our respected Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharamanji said India is all set to become a $5 trillion economy. In her post-budget media interaction, she said the center has actually respected the fiscal glide path, paying a lot of emphasis to the following 7 factors, that is, fiscal consolidation, focus on capital expenditure, 4 emphasis points of empowering women, tourism, Vishwakarmas, and also on green growth, then new income tax regime, Industrial Revolution 4.0, inflation, and agriculture credit. Now, let's discuss these aspects one by one. That is, how does our budget gives justice to all these integral factors which are actually interrelated, helping to attain the holistic development for the nation. And obviously, as our overall foundation of policy formulation is actually based on global welfare, not only on national welfare but on global welfare. So these objectives would finally help India to not only uplift itself but also to help the surrounding economies across the globe, our friends, to actually deal with these global challenges in a very, very well strategic manner. So let's begin. In terms of fiscal consolidation, I would like to tell you that the budget is beautifully balanced. There has been a very robust management of macroeconomics, as this is of crucial importance, the macroeconomic stability. We have worked together in such a way that we are taking the steps to bring more people into the tax net and towards the prudent expenditure. The budget has attended to fiscal consolidation and we are respecting the glide path on the fiscal deficit set earlier, which I have actually told you and we have discussed that for the current year, it is prospected or it has been planned to bring it to 5.9% of the GDP, and for the year 2026, we aspire it to bring it down further to 4.5% of the GDP. Further, our respected Finance Minister states that it also focuses on the capital expenditure, that is the capex. The budget gives a big leg up to the capital investment, looks at MSMEs as they are the real engine of growth, sustains capital investment, and also gives a push to the private sector while giving the tax reliefs to the individuals and the middle class. And the 4 emphasis points which I would like to repeat are, she says, we have emphasized on empowering women, tourism, and Vishwakarmas who are actually the artisans, helping to create the soft power of India through their craftsmanship skills. And 4th aspect is green growth. So this is really marvelous and it really amazes me that how the architect of this budget, our respected Finance Minister, has tried to cover all the relevant points in our budget, helping India to attain holistic development in a very, very well balanced manner. Now, here comes the next very, very important aspect which all of us get fascinated with, that is the new income tax regime. We have brought the fresh changes to the new taxation regime. She further states, we have actually simplified it and nicely broken down the tax slabs. Therefore, the new taxation regime that we brought in some years ago for the direct taxation has now got greater incentives. People can unhesitatingly move from the old to the new, but we are not compelling anyone. See how beautifully she is presenting her views so that there is no compulsion to the citizens of the country. She is saying that we are not compelling anyone, but the new one is actually very attractive as it gives greater rebates. Next aspect is Industrial Revolution 4.0. Nirmala Sitharamanji says that we are actually looking at a futuristic fintech sector. People will be trained through Industrial Revolution 4.0, and we are trying to unleash the digital economy in various walks of life. Hence, very, very beautifully incorporating digitization in every sector of the economy, helping our economy to actually move ahead with time, so that not even a single sector gets left behind. Next aspect is inflation. You have seen inflation come down, both the consumer price index and the wholesale price index. We have been discussing this particular aspect in all our preceding sessions. So, the respected finance minister states that we take inflation related steps when the things develop on the ground, and that has actually borne the results. The government has decided to release the wheat into the market, due to which the price will come down. Before the budget, we had already taken action to ease the wheat prices. Next aspect is agriculture credit. There has actually been a substantial increase in the agricultural credit availability. Around 20 lakh crore rupees is being made available for the agriculture credit. Also, a sub-scheme under the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana makes sure that people living in the coastal areas are going to benefit from it. So dear friends, isn't the approach of our respected finance minister truly amazing us? That how strategically she has thought of while forming this particular budget. Obviously, she has taken into consideration the respective viewpoints given by the eminent leaders, economists, and the respected ministries of our country during the pre-budget sessions. Very, very well giving the justice to each and every component of the economy in the best possible manner. So, terming the budget beautifully balanced, the finance minister said India is all set to become the $5 trillion economy. So it's really excellent. Now let's move further to realize how does the continuous and consistent focus on growth and transition path will help to make India a $7 trillion economy. We have just now realized that how does the present budget help India to realize its $5 trillion economic goal. Now, we are discussing that how does the consistent focus on growth and transition path will help India to attain the $7 trillion economy. Actually, this budget has grasped the opportunity to consolidate India's macroeconomic fundamentals. Even as the developed economies slow down in 2023, India is likely to remain a bright spot with falling inflation and robust growth. The prudence demonstrated over the past couple of years by the budgets in conjunction with a finely tuned monetary policy has actually helped India's economy emerge relatively unscathed despite a series of public health and economic shocks. So, the budget faced an even more difficult exercise this year, that is balancing multiple objectives when the global environment may remain challenging. So this truly defines that our leaders are actually the real heroes, the real architects of the beautiful destiny of our country and also of the well-balanced global scenario. Yes, if we are able to do an effective SWOT analysis, if we are able to identify the opportunities in such tough times, which are not only going to benefit us as the country, but also going to benefit the entire globe as the global family, that truly defines that how charismatic our leadership is. And my dear guys, this is really the great moment of pride for all of us, that we are being led by such visionary leaders. And as our PM has always said, that I believe in the governance, not the governing structures. He says that we are not governing you, but the firm belief that this is the governance, that we are acting together holistically as a family. So coming back, let's try to analyze the viewpoints of this great eminent economist who actually says that underlying assumptions of growth and revenue receipts are basically realistic, with the nominal GDP growth assumed at 10.5%, down from 15.4% in the financial year 2023, leaving the room to absorb the impact of potential reversals. So it basically eschewed the unwarranted fiscal stimulus. India's economy is actually resilient. The index of 8 core economic sectors grew 7.4% in December, led by electricity consumption. The GST collections in January 2022 were 1.56 lakh crore rupees, one of the highest indicative of the robust activity. The center remains committed to the glide path for reducing the fiscal deficit to 4.5% in the financial year 2026. It is budgeted at 5.9% of the gross domestic product from the figure of 6.4% for the financial year 2023. So relatively modest market borrowing of 15.4 lakh crore rupees, which is lower than the consensus estimates, will also ease the pressure on the sovereign yield curve, thereby helping sustain credit demand. So sustained growth will actually be facilitated by rising capital spend outlays, which will include the transfers and incentives to the state's investment projects, giving the larger multipliers versus the revenue spends. The higher spends on investment have been a great hallmark of the past 3 budgets. The capex outlay was increased 33% to 10.1 lakh crore rupees from 7.5 lakh crore rupees. Effective capex, including grants and aid to the states for the capital projects, is 13.7 lakh crore rupees, which is actually 4.5% of the GDP. So support to the state's infrastructure programs was increased to 1.3 lakh crore rupees. Infrastructure continues to remain a priority for sustained growth. Initiatives for actually incentivizing the cities and the municipal bodies in Tier 2 and 3 towns to raise the resources via municipal bonds with the ring-fenced urban development funds hold the promise of developing an important financing channel. So complementing the large projects, efforts for MSMEs, the engine sustaining India's growth and jobs over the next decade in accessing the credit continue. The 9,000 crore rupees allocated is actually expected to induce the additional credit flows of 2 lakh crore rupees. This budget is basically about creating an environment for the transition path to India's economy reaching the $7 trillion economy milestone by 2030 by boosting the private sector investment. Significant institutional changes, rationalization of input markets, R&D outlays in the priority sectors, and diffusion of the digital public goods infrastructure to reach the last mile are actually needed to complement the budgetary initiatives. I repeat, significant institutional changes, rationalization of the input markets, R&D outlays in priority sectors, and diffusion of digital public goods infrastructure to actually reach the last mile are needed to complement the budgetary initiatives. And all these efforts clubbed together would definitely help the Indian economy to reach the $7 trillion economy milestone by 2030 by boosting the private sector investment. Just now we had also learned by 2025 it's our target to become the $5 trillion economy, and by 2030 we have just realized it's our target to become the $7 trillion economy if everything goes as planned. Now, after this great in-depth analysis, let's try to understand that this budget also helps in tidying up the house for private investment to come soon. Our respected Finance Minister, Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman's budget has actually upturned the conventional perceptions of a fifth-year budget. In fact, it could be mistaken for a foundational first-year budget coming at the beginning of a long-term cycle. There is actually a certain irony here. The BJP-led NDA government's current term, that is 2019 to 2024, has actually coincided with a global upheaval that has led finance ministries across the world, including in New Delhi, to actually go back to the drawing board more than once. As such, Dr. Sitharaman has had 3 fresh start budgets and related initiatives. In 2019, following the election victory. In 2020-22, with the COVID era, fiscal recalculations and reforms, both mid-year as well as the part of the budget. Finally, the budget announcements yesterday, that is 1st February 2023, factoring in the pandemic's aftermath, the Russia-Ukraine war's continuation, and the at least near-term inflationary risks and international economic volatility. So navigating the economy through such choppy waters and high tides while pursuing the long-term strategic objectives, maintaining fiscal prudence and optimizing the opportunities offered to India in this challenging but transformative decade is actually not easy. Yes, my friends, we should realize it's really not such an easy task, but our charismatic leaders have made this daunting task possible. That is, they have been able to attain the impossible. So, both Dr. Sitaraman and her boss, our respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, actually deserve the credit here. Their charismatic leadership and perseverance has really helped us to realize our present state where we are standing here as a nation. And obviously the future as being predicted by the national eminent leaders, economists, and also the international leaders, economists, and international organizations like IMF and World Bank, that India is going to be the bright spot in this gloomy global economic scenario, and is still the bright spot. More important, our leaders, especially Dr. Sitaraman and our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, have not lost the sight of the country's goals, very, very beautifully demonstrating our Hindu mythology story, that is how Arjun targeted the eye of the fish to reach his goal. So, my dear friends, whether at home or abroad, the stakeholders in the economy will be reassured by this budget. It keeps India well on the path to a sustained period of growth, one in which it will contribute, as has been estimated, at least a fifth of the incremental global GDP between now and the end of the 2020s. Now, at this point, I would like to bring to your knowledge the 5 noteworthy points in the budget which are of particular interest. Firstly, the capital expenditure and infrastructure spending have got a decisive boost, maintaining a momentum that has actually marked this government's spending. Next, the capital expenditure outlay has risen by 33% to hit 10 lakh crore rupees, roughly $125 billion. There is appreciable attention to the transport infrastructure, that is railways and air connectivity and logistics. Next, wherever attempted, rejigging of the customs duties and tariffs has been aimed at promoting the domestic manufacture and allowing the easier import of the components. Policy making has been focused to this end. Next, obviously, the green transitions have been incentivized using a range of tools, putting aside money for replacing old and polluting government vehicles, in turn creating the demand for the domestic into industry, supporting renewable energy with viability gap funding, that is VGF, for the battery storage, and more funds to facilitate e-vehicle adoption. The fiscal discipline has been the resolute. From 6.4% in the financial year 2023, the fiscal deficit target for the financial year 2024 is 5.9%, with a firm promise to reach 4.5% in the financial year 2026. Considering the burden of the pandemic years, this is actually really commendable. The modernization of India's historically infuriating personal tax regime has been pertinaciously pursued. While the two regimes, one with exemptions or tax breaks and a higher rate, and the one with zero exemptions and a lower rate, basically continue to exist, the new regime is actually down to 5 slabs from 6, with a peak rate of 30%. True, there should ideally be no more than perhaps 3 slabs, and those mid-career and locked into tax-saving insurance schemes and mortgages will still weigh the pros and cons. Yet, for a younger professional, the decision should be easier. The critics have basically pointed out that the private investment is not exactly energetic and has not been so for much of the Modi years. While there is some truth to this, but the context really needs to be understood. In 2014, the BJP-led government inherited a very troubled economy, and the companies were saddled with over-leveraged balance sheets. The conditions were not at all conducive to private investment. What actually followed was a determined banking cleanup, complemented by a massive infrastructure push and later lowered corporate tax rates. So this actually allowed the businesses to retire the debt and repair its books, leaving it primed to invest. And that is when the prolonged unraveling of the pandemic and then the war hit. In 2023, that is now, with a recession in major countries to take place and the global demand shaky, the private investment will be slow in coming. Add to this the traditional corporate capital expenditure wariness in a general election year. Some 18 months from now, that is roughly after 1.5 years in the summer of 2024, the things could actually be very, very different. If the current predictions hold, the third Modi government would have entered office. And if the current hopes fold, basically the worst of the global economic slowdown would be behind us. Private investment will be set for a big surge altogether. So, astute and realistic, the Modi-Sitaraman team has anticipated that public investment will have to be front-loaded and will have to carry the economy for just that while longer. A corporate investment upswing and a stronger GDP growth is actually inevitable as India enters the second half of the 2020s. So should this come true, Modi's next term will actually coincide with an unusually robust economic boom. That is the essential and the foundational bet of this particular budget. My dear friends, it really overwhelms us that our charismatic leaders are so strategic, so well organized while formulating the major policies for the nation, taking into consideration the present times of upheaval and also taking into consideration the global challenges that might intensify. There's a huge probability for them to intensify in the near future, as being predicted by the international organizations. In such times, if we can be so innovative, so well strategized, so perseverant, just imagine, had the times been normal, what all miracles we would have been able to create. This defines the true incredible India, my dear friends. This defines the true incredible India. And being Indian, this is the great moment of pride for all of us that we belong to such a rich, wealthy, and the value-centric nation. So, my dear guys, let's move forward to basically understand how does the well-synchronized approach of taking the calibrated steps help to avoid populism, giving utmost priority to the overall growth of all the sectors of an economy. My dear friends, furthering the efforts to boost the economic resilience, considering the global growth moderation. The Union budget for the financial year 2024 basically attempts at calibrated steps in the right direction with a very well-defined approach. So, the focus on infrastructure boost and capital spending, along with the effective fiscal prudence, is a very, very big positive. I repeat, focus on infrastructure boost and capital spending, along with a very well effective fiscal prudence, is actually a very big positive. Hence, the budget rightly avoids the populist measures in the pre-election year and therefore prioritizes the long-term growth holistically. Fiscal consolidation for the financial year 2024 continues to adhere to the projected glide path with a sub 4.5% target by the financial year 2026, as we have discussed earlier as well. While the tax buoyancy levels appear reasonable, the expenditure assumptions on multiple heads are actually projected conservatively, especially in the pre-election year, and will be monitored very, very closely. So, a moderate rise in the market borrowings is actually a big positive and could actually keep the bond yield movements in a very narrow range, linking part of the state fiscal deficit to power the sector reforms is welcome. A significant increase in the proposed capex outlay with a lower focus on fiscal transfers and subsidies is quite encouraging and actually indicates a continued improvement in the quality of spending. A key positive for enhancing productivity and investment. The announcements for boosting multimodal seamless connectivity, logistics sectors, and the trust on urban infrastructure development augur well for the infrastructure growth. I repeat, announcements for boosting multimodal seamless connectivity, logistics sectors, and the basic trust on urban infrastructure development augur well for the infrastructure growth. Also, my dear friends, the budget has very well addressed the affordable housing sector with a reasonable increase in the outlay for the PMAY, a positive for housing and ancillary sectors. While the budget has considered the supply aspect of the economy through the focus on infrastructure and domestic manufacturing, it also aims to boost demand through some much needed relief to the taxpayers. Other measures like plugging tax arbitrage in income from the high ticket insurance policies, capital gain tax on the market linked debentures may actually dampen the sentiments in the short term, but are the moves in the right direction. Furthermore, given the need to build sustainable growth momentum throughout the nation, the budget actually delivers in terms of bolstering the quality of spending, higher infrastructure development, continued focus on manufacturing, and the overall digital thrust. These measures should actually help support India's current growth momentum and possibly boost it further. I repeat this main highlight of our discussion. Given the need to build sustainable growth momentum, the budget actually delivers in terms of bolstering the quality of spending altogether, higher infrastructure development, continued focus on manufacturing and digital trust. These measures should actually help support India's current account momentum in terms of growth and therefore possibly boost it further. We expect the domestic focused sectors including housing and construction, discretionary spending like auto and consumer durables, infrastructure, that is road, railways, and banking, to show the resilient performance supported by the macro tailwinds. Hence, it summarizes the essence of the discussion of this particular aspect, that is, the core expectation of the domestic focused sectors, including the housing and construction, discretionary spending like auto and consumer durables, infrastructure in terms of roads and railways, and bankings, to actually show the resilient performance supported by the macro tailwinds. Now, my dear friends, let's try to understand that how does building capabilities and competitiveness is actually being developed, realizing the fact that this is actually the backbone for the success of any economy, both in the short term and also the long term. We have also been able to realize that our budget is actually trying to balance our short-term goals as well as the long-term goals in a very well planned out format. So, my dear guys, India is the bright star on the world stage. I repeat, India is the bright star on the world stage, declared the Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman ji while presenting this year's budget. The initiatives collectively highlight how Amrit Manthan will actually propel Bharat's march towards the development of its people's capability and the competitiveness of its industry, while showcasing India as a globally responsible nation. This terminology, that is the globally responsible nation, very well defines our goal of existing in the global economy. What mindset our leaders and we citizens have for the global family as a whole, paying utmost importance to the strategic concept of the unified family, the basic intent to actually showcase to the world through our efforts, through our actions, our very noble foundation of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, as I have been propagating this particular aspect throughout my session, because this is the real foundation base, real building block of our economic building. Yes, my dear guys, this is the truth. So, the intent of each initiative proposed in the budget was earnest and the approach imaginative. Hence, if executed well, these will actually help enhance the trust index of India's competitive agility in holistic terms. I repeat, if executed well, these will actually help enhance the trust index of India's competitive agility. And my dear friends, it's actually a beautiful irony that India's competitive agility ideology is actually based on its framework of functioning as a team, of functioning as a global team, which is based on cooperation. Isn't it wonderful? So, over the past few years, physical and digital infrastructure has been built and upgraded through successive interventions. Therefore, the resulting ease of living and doing business has actually proved the quality of life for the millions of citizens. Take the rural livelihood scheme, for example, which is actually, in true terms, a great example which aims to enable 81 lakh women self-help groups, that is SHGs, to actually evolve and upscale into professionally managed organizations altogether, serving large consumer markets very much like startups growing into meaningful unicorns. The purposeful emphasis on the public goods shown through in the plans such as those for a digital public infrastructure for agriculture, open source, open standard, and interoperable. Here again, mirroring the earlier success in India's stack. So complementing these digital interventions will actually be a substantial capital investment outlay which has increased threefold since 2019-20, as well as 100 critical transport infrastructure projects for first and last mile connectivity. Now the next very important aspect is decarbonization. And my dear guys, decarbonization and economic development are not mutually exclusive and can actually drive growth in the new areas that emerge. The budget's focus on the green agenda across the sectors, whether in the form of energy or transport transition, basically demonstrates in an excellent manner the acceptance of our role and responsibility as the global citizens. Yes, you should mind my words. I'm saying global citizens, not the national citizens. Because we are paying a lot of emphasis towards the fact that the real development can happen only when the national goals are in synchronization with the global goals. That's the real fundamental ideology of the global family, to work in a unified approach. So, my dear friends, it also serves as the acknowledgement that the government is uniquely positioned to mobilize and coordinate efforts in India's path towards net zero by 2070, as very well proclaimed by our respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, while encouraging the business to step up and share the responsibility. Isn't it wonderful to see that in such tough times existing across the globe in a very holistic manner, we are paying a lot of emphasis. We are trying to leave no stone unturned to actually pay respect to each and every global goal, be it the Go Green goal, paying maximum emphasis towards the attainment of all possible sustainable development goals in the best possible manner, simultaneously addressing the needs of the middle class population of the country, targeting the policies to actually suit the needs of the rural India in the best possible manner, paying emphasis towards digitizing the economy to the best possible extent, paying a lot of emphasis towards designing the framework of an economy to actually minimize unemployment, minimize inflation, and simultaneously attaining optimum balance between economic goals and also the goals of the Reserve Bank of India, which is actually to curb inflation. And obviously, realizing that we are still the emerging market, we are still the developing economy. Despite of that, we can be so imaginary, so innovative, and so strategic. This really amazes me. This really amazes me if I talk for myself. This really amazes me that how well strategized our leaders are. So, again, I would like to emphasize the fact that this budget has taken substantial steps towards the green growth-based economy, emphasizing how actively we are moving towards decarbonization altogether and circulating this particular aspect. Initiatives underline the ubiquity of the green economy and the green diplomacy. These efforts will actually help in reducing the carbon intensity of the economy and therefore will provide related large-scale job opportunities. And not to mention, because all of us are quite aware that our government is also paying a lot of emphasis to go beyond the way to actually upskill, reskill the assets of our country by incorporating very, very innovative technologies in the education domain, in the healthcare domain, putting in maximum efforts for the training of the nursing staffs in a very, very innovative manner. This is really amazing. Also realizing the fact that we should be at par with the global needs. We should be at par with the developed nations of the globe, so that one day we would also be a developed economy, and that would be very soon. And therefore, this has been termed as the Amrit Kal. So in conclusion, the government's efforts since 2014 have ensured all citizens a better quality of living and a life of dignity for every component of the society. Per capita income has more than doubled to 1.97 lakh rupees. Moreover, the formalization of the entire economy has progressed significantly as reflected in the EPFO membership, more than doubling to 27 crore and 7,400 crore digital payments of 126 lakh crore rupees through the UPI in 2022. My dear friends, the focus on building capacity, capability, and therefore the resultant growth is also expected to give a fillip to the growth of MSMEs. No doubt, there are grand challenges on which we need to focus, but the collective outcome will be Amrit Kal. So, my dear friends, all of us, being the very, very responsible citizens of not only India but of the entire globe, should try to live to the expectations of our leaders and try to be very, very effective towards our vision of making India the number one, of being a very, very significant and relevant component of the global family, of realizing our responsibility towards the nation, towards the globe, and towards the society as a whole. Now, let's try to understand how we are hurtling towards the developed nation line, as I have just quoted that today we are the emerging market, we are the emerging economy, we are the developing economy, but very soon we will be the developed nation. So let's try to explore our journey towards hurtling towards the developed nation line. And this is really possible because we are moving towards the excellent growth trajectory. Dear ladies and gentlemen, India is one of the few large economies to actually withstand the multiple shocks of the last 3 years. Yes, all of us are quite aware, as we have been saying, and being the responsible citizens of the globe, we are quite aware that from last 3 years we are seeing a lot of tough times persisting in the global scenario in terms of health crisis, economic crisis, then the adverse geopolitical situations, adverse supply chain disruptions, thereby leading to the earthquake or the global turmoil across the globe. So, my dear friends, with its estimated 7% GDP growth, India remains a bright outlier. So, can India continue to be resilient? And can it keep its promise of becoming a developed nation by 2047? Viewed through this long-term lens, the Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharamanji has very well presented a prudent and balanced budget with the massive investments in infrastructure, green growth and capacity building in skills and youth development. My dear friends, technology will also play an important role in driving the inclusivity. This sector brings in nearly $250 billion of revenue for the country and employs more than 5 million people, 36% of whom are women. Now again, my dear friends, this is very important to note that our society, our country has been based on the patriarchal setup wherein the males were given the preference to attain progress in economic terms, to rise, to seek education, to work. But here it's mentioned that 36% of women are actually contributing towards the working population of our country. Isn't it great? But the question is, how do we defend and grow this political nucleus? Leverage our demographic advantage for the globalized labor market. And here I would also like to bring to your knowledge, all of us are quite familiar with the term democratic dividend. But have you heard of the term democratic dividend? If we target democratic dividend, enhancement of the democratic dividend would obviously lead to the enhancement of demographic dividend. Hence our target should be democratic dividend. So, if we talk about leveraging our demographic advantage for the globalized labor market, not only for the Indian labor market, but also for the globalized labor market, on these grounds, India is expected to have the world's largest workforce by 2030. When more than 60% of our population will be working age. In a rapidly aging world, there is a huge competitive advantage. Hence, as I have mentioned earlier, we need to reskill and upskill our current workforce with the knowledge for a globalized labor market. Yes, my friends, today's times call for the globalized perspective. So we are no more concerned about the Indian labor market or the labor market of a particular country. We are concerned about the globalized labor market. Especially today's times have actually helped us to realize the concept of the global family. Because as we lent the helping hand to Sri Lanka recently during the times when it was facing the policy paralysis, major forex crunch, India was the country to actually give justice, substantial justice to the first neighborhood policy in a very, very well and strategic manner. Even recently, when India has tried to convince the International Monetary Fund to help Sri Lanka in its overall debt restructuring plan, it's really commendable. And obviously, every nation across the globe is appreciating our compassionate behavior, our basic sense of belongingness, our overall framework, the value-centric principles on which we are working. It's really fabulous. We are not really concerned about our economic parameters if our overall actions are directed towards the attainment of the global goals, towards the global welfare, the holistic welfare, economic welfare and economic development would obviously be very, very obvious. They would come automatically. Economic development would happen automatically, my dear guys. So, coming back, the IT services industry basically faces a huge shortage of talent in the domains like robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data, and analytics. So, a holistic approach involving industry, academia, and government is actually a step in the right direction. I repeat, a holistic approach involving industry, academia, and the government is actually a step in the right direction. The Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which will actually provide on-job training and industry partnership to the lakhs of youngsters, is to be commended for including coding, artificial intelligence, robotics, and drone technology in its courses. Tap the newer markets for talent is another major trait of our economy, and again emphasized in our budget by the respected ministries. So, my dear friends, the government of India has given a massive push to the infrastructure sector, a spend equivalent to 3.3% of the GDP. This can actually provide a huge impetus to the Indian IT sector. Good roads, electricity, quality housing, and robust rail and air connectivity will actually help us broad base our growth to tier 2 and 3 cities. And as we have seen on 31st January 2023, our respected President Srimati Draupadi Murmu ma'am has very well acknowledged the excellent efforts and the progress attained by our aviation sector and the railway sector, which is really commendable and is being appreciated across the globe. Isn't it great? Isn't it great? Furthermore, our major cities are congested and in dire need of improvement, my dear friends. For so long, we have been forcing people to move where the jobs are. This is very important highlight, so please listen carefully. For so long, we have been forcing people to move where the jobs are. But now, we need to take the jobs to where the people are. Universal access to education and healthcare is another very, very important aspect. The finance minister, Dr. Nirmala Sitharamanji, has very beautifully highlighted inclusive development in the budget, hence embracing the last mile as the two key priorities in her budget. Sustainable inclusive development can happen only if we provide equal access to equitable, high quality education and healthcare to every Indian. I repeat, sustainable inclusive development can happen only if every Indian is being provided with an equal access to equitable, high quality education and healthcare. Our education system must equip our children with fundamental capacities like critical thinking, problem solving, learning to learn, leadership, and communication. But this can happen only through a good ecosystem of empowered teachers, supportive academic and administrative authorities, and adequate learning resources. And for this, a lot of efforts are being going on for skilling, upskilling, and reskilling of the staff in question. Moreover, this is actually the overarching goal of the National Education Policy 2020 as well. The Government of India's push for a re-envisioned teacher training program and a recast of the District Institutes of Education and Training are a vital step in this direction. I repeat, the Government of India's push for a re-envisioned teacher training program and a recast of the District Institutes of Education and Training are the very vital steps in this direction. Moreover, no child can learn if he or she is actually malnourished and hungry. One hopes we will move towards the commitment of public expenditure on education made in the National Education Policy. The mission is actually to eliminate sickle cell anemia by 2047, and this is actually laudable. So this helps us to realize that we actually need to realize the importance of harmonizing the goal to attain efficiency in healthcare and education on same lines. That is, we should try to attain maximum results towards the attainment of this particular goal of actually strengthening our healthcare system and also strengthening our education system simultaneously. That is, both of them go hand in hand. And that's why the mission to eliminate sickle cell anemia by 2047 is actually a laudable one. Now, let's try to understand the tailwind for inclusive digital growth engine. And my dear guys, this is how our budget has been framed to actually give justice to all the relevant factors at the same time. So we are able to realize that how broad-minded approaches are being followed towards the attainment of the balance of securing maximum possible development in all the relevant sectors of the economy. Very well, keeping in mind to attain proper synchronization between the national goals and the global goals, obviously keeping global welfare as the utmost priority. This is really amazing. Dear friends, the budget has taken several steps towards boosting the economy and thereby strengthening India's position as a global economic power. It is actually in line with the vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat that actually empowers the citizens through a democratic and transparent digital-led economy. The budget announcements aim to make essential services and the amenities more affordable and accessible to the citizens. Revamping the credit guarantee scheme and provision of additional collateral-free guarantee credit will boost the MSME's balance sheets and hence reduce their cost of borrowing. I repeat, the budget announcements aim to make essential services and amenities more affordable and accessible to the citizens. Revamping the credit guarantee scheme and provision of additional collateral-free guarantee credit will basically boost the MSME's balance sheets and hence reduce their cost of borrowing. The budget boosts the One District, One Product initiative in an excellent manner by encouraging the states to establish a unity mall in their capitals to showcase their products. This particular move, along with the efforts to integrate this initiative with the digital markets, will actually boost the livelihood opportunities available to the artisans. My dear friends, the budget outlines the importance of the startups, allowing the carry forward of losses for longer will actually strengthen their books and hence enable the focus on building the larger ecosystem. Efforts towards the financial support and training for the traditional artisans and craftspeople will help women and other disadvantaged sections of the society integrate with the MSME value chain while improving the quality, scale, and reach of their products. The finance minister has exhorted entrepreneurs to make artificial intelligence in India and make artificial intelligence work for India, and provided the right impetus to the program by proposing to set up 3 centers of excellence to promote this particular technology. The 35,000 crore rupees allocation for the priority investments towards the net zero objectives very beautifully reflects the government's seriousness in leading the fight against climate change. The duty exemptions to import of the capital goods and machinery for the manufacture of lithium-ion cell for the batteries should actually make the electric vehicles, that is the EVs, more affordable and hence encourage their faster adoption. These policies will actually act as the tailwinds for India's growth engine. So my dear guys, are you able to realize that how effectively the overall SWOT analysis and pestle analysis is being conducted by our respected ministries and the eminent leaders and economists? Isn't it really great? This is very well getting explained the way they have been able to form the budget, trying to include each and every relevant point into the budget. This is really marvelous. Skilling and entrepreneurship are actually the key focuses of the budget. The focus on a digital-led framework, startups, centers of excellence, and encouragement to the MSMEs via the easier credit will actually help e-commerce industry given how closely they are integrated. I repeat, the focus on a digital-led framework, startups, centers of excellence, and encouragement to the MSMEs via the easier credit will actually help the e-commerce industry given how closely they are integrated. A tighter embrace of e-commerce can actually catapult India's domestic manufacturing too, given the scale and access to technology and funds it provides to anyone onboarding it. E-commerce very beautifully blends technology, finance, human resource, supply chain, and several other functions. And my dear guys, I would also like to let you know the e-commerce segment of our economy, actually for every economy across the globe, got a major boost during the pandemic. The online businesses have been able to realize their strength and have been able to attain maximum revenue generation during the pandemic, and hence digitization, startups, technology, and the online businesses, that is e-commerce, are the excellent examples of how to identify the opportunities during the times of threatening situations. Because my dear friends, COVID pandemic was actually one of the very major crises which had struck the world economy 3 years back, and only a charismatic leader would be able to identify the opportunities in such threatening situations. So this is really amazing, a very beautiful specimen of how the effective leadership should be. Hence, that's why today we can say that India is a really bright spot among the gloomy global economic scenario. Or I can say India is a beautiful example in front of the world, showing light to various nations across the globe. This is really excellent, really excellent. A lot of applause should go for our very, very charismatic leaders who are the real architects of a beautiful destiny for all of us. Hence, the potential of the e-commerce can actually be very well harnessed by one and all to achieve the true economic potential of the world's fifth largest economy. Really amazing, really amazing. Now, let's try to develop a very broad understanding of one of the most important sectors of our economy, that is education. My dear friends, education is actually a very, very vital segment. Rather, I would like to say, education is actually a very, very vital component which builds the foundation of an economy. So, in terms of the budget, education gets highest ever allocation. Share in the gross domestic product remains stagnant at 2.9%. The outlay for the education sector in the budget is actually looking up, increasing to 1,12,899.47 crore rupees for the next fiscal year from 1,04,277.72 crore rupees for the fiscal 2023. Our respected education minister, Mr. Dharmendra Pradhanji, tweeted that the highest ever allocation to the education sector would actually pave the way to transform India into a knowledge-based economy. And all of us can really comprehend his major vision and his objectives to actually realize the utmost importance and strategic significance of education, the role that education plays in a society, keeping our long-term goals in our basic objective formulation strategies. The school education department, as usual, has got the higher share from the education kitty at 68,804.85 crore rupees, with a big push to the PM Poshan scheme, which has actually subsumed the midday meal plan. Dear friends, we have just discussed that the goals to attain proficiency in education and also the goals to attain proficiency in healthcare actually go hand in hand. Thus, the PM Poshan scheme, that is the Pradhan Mantri Poshan scheme, which basically talks about or emphasizes on the aspect of the midday meal plan, is of crucial significance when we talk about the enhancement of when we talk about the enhancements of the prospects of school education. The higher education segment got 44,904.62 crore rupees, which will actually increase the funding to several central institutes, save the IIMs, where the self-sufficiency is being advocated. However, my dear friends, the bigger picture in terms of education's overall share in the pie shows that the larger goals are still distant. The overall expenditure on social services as a percentage of the gross domestic product was higher from 6.6% in 2015-16 to 8.3% as per the budget estimate for the financial year 2023. But it was actually driven largely by the pump up in health sector, especially after the pandemic. Obviously, my dear friends, when any particular crisis or the unforeseeable factor strikes the economy, especially the global economy, we have to modify and readjust our plans, because we need to be very, very flexible and hence address the needs of the current situation in order to give justice to the balanced approach, and that only defines the main ingredient for holistic development. So my dear guys, as I have basically told, that overall expenditure on social services as the percentage of GDP was higher from 6.6% in 2015-16 to 8.3% as per the budget estimate for the financial year 2023. But it was driven largely by the pump up in the health sector, especially after the pandemic. The Economic Survey 2022-23 released this week shows that while the student enrollment is higher, the school level infrastructure is actually better and there are more teachers to boot. The total expenditure, that is combined states and center, on education as a percentage of the GDP had stayed stagnant to nearly 2.9% since 2019. and is only marginally up from 2.8% in the financial year 2016. Moreover, my dear friends, and if I talk about the percentage of the total expenditure, it was actually down from 10.4% in the financial year 2016 to 9.5% in the budget estimate for the ongoing financial year 2023. So within the social services, it reduced from 42.8% in the financial year 2016 to an estimated 35.5% in the financial year 2022-23. Several policy prescriptions on education, including the new National Education Policy 2020, have reiterated the need to push up the public investment in the sector to 6% of the GDP. I repeat, several policy prescriptions on education, including the new National Education Policy 2020, have reiterated the need to push up public investments in the sector to 6% of the gross domestic product. The government insiders basically claim that a lot of funding stagnation was due to the less than satisfactory spending in many schemes. The utilization of the allocated funds is now tied to the fresh allocations under the new single nodal account requirement for the centrally sponsored schemes, and that has actually held back spending. The new budget, however, has seen one major new announcement on the education front. That is, setting up the 3 centers of excellence for artificial intelligence at the top educational institutions. So, the leading industry players will actually partner in conducting the interdisciplinary research, develop cutting-edge appliances and scalable problem solutions in the areas of agriculture, health, and sustainable cities. So this will actually galvanize an effective AI ecosystem and therefore nurture quality human resources in the field, announced the Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman. Furthermore, the Education Ministry said, given the important role of artificial intelligence across the areas, the Centers of Excellence concept will actually help premier educational institutions transform the research to cutting-edge technology and hence replicate it to the scalable problem solving for a country of our size and diversity. The proposed 100 labs and engineering institutions on 5G related applications will also provide a fillip to employment, startups, businesses, and promote innovation and entrepreneurship in young engineers, and Education Ministry statement said. I repeat, the proposed 100 labs and engineering institutions on 5G related applications will also provide a fillip in employment, startups, businesses, and promote innovation and entrepreneurship in young engineers, and Education Ministry statement said. The larger governmental focus, however, is on the key aspects of the new education policy. Accordingly, a national digital library for the children and adolescents is proposed to basically allow the children to access the device agnostic reading material across the genres and levels. The digital library apart, the government has said it would actually encourage the states to set up the physical libraries at panchayat and ward levels. The National Book Trust, Children's Book Trust, and other sources will also bring in the books in both English and regional languages at these physical libraries and hence collaborate with non-governmental organizations, that is the NGOs, for the same. The financial sector regulators will be requested to pitch in with the age-appropriate reading material on financial literacy. the finance minister has further announced that teachers' training would be re-envisioned through innovative pedagogy, curriculum transaction, continuous professional development, dipstick surveys, and ICT implementation. I repeat, the Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharamanji has further announced that the teachers' training would be re-envisioned through the very innovative pedagogy, curriculum and transaction, continuous professional development, dipstick surveys, and ICT implementation. Hence, for the purpose, the district institutes of education and training will be developed as the vibrant institutes of excellence. This is really the main highlight. That is the district institutes of education and training will be developed as the vibrant institutes of excellence. Now, my dear friends, we are now able to comprehend and realize that India is actually among the fastest growing economies club. And our fiscal year 2024 budget helps us to realize this particular goal with full enthusiasm. The fiscal year 2024 budget has largely been in line with expectation of the government, trying to strike a balance, a very effective balance between the fiscal priorities, minimal populistic measures, and the capex push. Thus far, the steps taken by the government continue to support growth momentum and focus on bringing down the fiscal deficit. At the same time, giving support to the middle classes is likely to result in a continuation of the growth in a very, very meaningful way. Furthermore, we believe that the Indian markets have not been cheap in terms of valuation and have been underperforming other markets over the past few months. So, with a few more months of underperformance, Indian equities will actually be structurally well positioned for the long term and hence could present a good long-term investment opportunity. As a fund house, we have been recommending the investors to invest systematically in equities, adhere to asset allocation strategies, and invest in the debt mutual funds over the course of this year. Over the past 3 years, the government has actually initiated various steps which have been very instrumental in creating a level playing field for debt investments. This has actually made long-term investing in debt mutual funds very, very attractive. Now, my dear friends, to actually conclude, the budget is a very pragmatic and growth-oriented one, which will actually help India remain amongst the fastest growing economies globally. We are positive on manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, and infrastructure as a team. I repeat, we are positive on manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, and infrastructure as the basic theme. Both infra and manufacturing are the core segments which have the potential to create a ripple effect among various other sectors. So this is the real essence of a true and dynamic leader who can understand the core intricate needs of the economy, keeping in view the available resources, also keeping in view the existing environment in which an economy is functioning. That is to realize which are the core sectors if given the impetus can actually help to foster the development of other sectors of the economy. That's what our government is actually doing. That is, both infra and manufacturing are the segments which have the potential to create a ripple effect among various sectors across the economy. this is really very broad-minded approach being adopted by our ever dynamic leaders. So let's move forward to analyze how can India be made more attractive to attract the investments from overseas. Basically, at a time when India is one of the few bright spots in a gloomy world, the budget had many announcements that will not only boost the economy but also make India a much more attractive investment destination. The proposals to actually simplify the taxes and compliance requirements, taxation incentives for the startups and the MSMEs are the basic step in the right direction. I repeat, the proposals to actually simplify the taxes and compliance requirements, taxation incentives for the startups and MSMEs are the very right step in this particular direction. Other measures to use the permanent account number, that is the PAN, as an identifier and hence expand the scope of DigiLocker will obviously improve the digitization and delivery of the financial services. Furthermore, the increase in the tax rebate limit to 7 lakh rupees will actually help the low income earners, especially given the increase in the cost of living. The reduction in the number of income slabs to 5 simplifies the overall taxation process. Overall, you can see a very progressive move towards rationalizing the taxation structure across the board. So, my dear guys, if you are investing for the long term, you should actually be very strategic in making your investment decisions. And obviously, you should stick to the basics, that is, focus on improving your skills and knowledge, which will actually enable you to earn more and invest more. Secondly, build a diversified portfolio, very well diversified portfolio for the long term. Thirdly, have a very sensible asset allocation of the equities, bonds, and gold. And lastly, increase your investments regularly and stick to your plan. I repeat these key basic rules which an investor should actually keep in mind. Firstly, focus on improving your skills and knowledge, which will actually enable you to earn more and invest more. Secondly, build a very well diversified portfolio for the long term. Thirdly, have a very sensible asset allocation of equities, bonds, and gold. And lastly, increase your investments regularly and stick to your plan. Now, my dear guys, let's further explore the very strategic intent by the respected finance minister to actually incorporate another major aspect to actually give our economy a major push, and that is regarding giving a major push to the millets as the budget maps out cereal hub. Dear friends, the companies such as ITC and Tata Consumer are likely to push more millet-based products as the budget envisages India becoming a global hub for the cereal grains. India is the largest producer and the second largest exporter of millets, which are actually seen as a healthier alternative to the conventional food grain like rice and wheat. Increasing local production will actually help boost exports of the commodity, which will finally add to the foreign exchange. The millet prices will actually remain steady following the move, industry experts said. The finance minister, Dr. Nirmala Sitharamanji, said the government would support the Indian Institute of Millets Research in Hyderabad as the basic center of excellence. ITC sells a number of millet-based products. ITC had said it will actually start a farmer demonstration and training on growing millets over 7,000 acres, and production will actually be aligned to the offtake as consumption builds up. We are mainstreaming ancient millets through Tata Soulful, making it accessible and affordable to all. Tata Consumer Products tweeted on Wednesday post-budget release. Now, my dear friends, let's try to analyze another major segment of the economy, that is the automobile segment. Cars, electric vehicles, and trucks to get the demand boost. The demand for the cars and electric vehicles is likely to accelerate, riding on enhanced income tax rebate, monetary allocation for the vehicle scrappage policy, and import duty exemption on the machines and capital goods for the manufacture of lithium-ion cells announced in the budget. The overall reduction in the highest income tax surcharge will also benefit the luxury vehicle sales, even as the select top-end luxury cars will become costlier, while a 33% jump in allocation for the infrastructure projects is set to boost the truck sales, industry executives and analysts said. So, the reduction in the income tax across various categories will actually increase the propensity among the salaried class to spend, said Mr. Shashank Srivastav, Executive Director at Maruti Suzuki. Furthermore, Mr. Santosh Iyer, Managing Director and CEO, Mercedes-Benz India, said that while the budget should actually drive demand, the basic custom duty change will make the S-Class, Maybach, GLB and EQB dearer. As we locally manufacture, this will not affect 95% of our portfolio, he said. Mr. Sudarshan Venu, MD, TVS Motors, said the core emphasis on increased infrastructure spends and support for the lithium-ion battery manufacturing will be a great multiplier for the industry. Hence, my dear friends, we can see and realize that how does our strategic budget is actually helping the core sectors of the economy to actually boom. And hence it very well explains that very well planned out strategy is actually responsible because only such a technique can help to address the needs of all possible sectors of an economy at the best possible level. Now, furthermore, here comes the very important aspect wherein we realize that the basic intent to fit the 7 priorities helps in the successful formulation of an effective budget. So, to fit 7 priorities, 1 budget jigsaw. Dear friends, here we are trying to make a corollary between our budget formation process and also the Hindu mythological aspect of Saptarshis. Because as in our budget, we are giving the utmost priority to the 7 key aspects. So let's start. The Saptarshis are basically a good metaphor the finance minister used in her budget speech. At least some people may now learn the names of the 7 rishis. Of course, Saptarshis changed from one Manvantara, that is an era. Manvantara means an era. So, of course, the Saptarshis changed from one Manvantara, that is an era, to another, and the current Manvantara is that of Amrit Kal. Accordingly, the Saptarshis for the first budget in the Amrit Kal basically address 7 key factors, that is inclusive development, reaching the last mile, infrastructure and investment, unleashing the potential, green growth, youth power, and financial sector. So these core 7 priorities basically set the tone for the budget 2023. The Saptarshis of yore had their disciples and offspring. And each of these 7 priorities basically has several ideas within it. Dear friends, if we remember Marichi today, that's largely because of his son Kashyap, from whom all the beings are descended. So, in order to continue with the metaphor, unleashing the potential, which is all about the future, is like Marichi. So, within this, as the most important item I will pick is the PAN, that is the permanent account number, as the common business identifier. Among other things, Atri is identified with the bringing down of Ganga. Thus, he can be identified with the green growth. In the sky, the Saptarshis are the Big Dipper, part of the Usra Major, that is the Great Bear. As every school kid knows, 2 of those stars basically point to the pole star. In the Western astronomy, those pointer stars are Dubhe and Merak, Kratu and Pulaha, respectively, in the world of Saptarshis. So, as the pointers for this budget, Kratu and Pulaha are infrastructure and investment and financial sector, respectively. Now, consider infrastructure and investment. Before every budget, everyone wants tax reductions. That is the basic requirement of every citizen of the country. So every economist knows the multiplier benefits of tax reductions are lower than those of the public expenditure. Also, every economist knows the multiplier benefits of the capex are higher than those of the revenue expenditure. So this is the last full budget before the 2024 elections. So the expectations were quite right about the tax reductions, both for personal income taxes and the corporate taxation. So since the government of India has not tinkered with taxes in that particular fashion, preferring stability and continuity, those expectations were unrealistic. Now, my dear friends, in the aftermath of the COVID, capex was increased sharply, since that actually leads to employment, enhances the growth potential, and finally catalyzes the private investments. Now, on that higher base, the budget 2023 has actually jacked up the capital investments even more in terms of railways, logistics, regional connectivity, and urbanization, with the direct government of India capital investment to be supplemented by the state level investments and the private sector. Historically, the budgets have led to hype in the society because of extreme obsession with the annual changes in taxes. Direct and as well as the domestic indirect taxes are under the purview of the GST Council. If I talk specifically about the domestic indirect taxes, those changes will occur outside the budget. Now, one of the remarkable successes in terms of India becoming part of the global supply chain and making India working has been in the area of mobiles. For mobiles and a few other items, specifically the electronic items, the budget actually reduces the import duties so that the production costs are reduced. Contrary to the expectations, the budget has not reduced any direct taxes, but it has done the laudable by accepting what every economist actually argues for, that is, an end to the exemptions. My dear friends, exemptions actually clutter up the system, leading to the disputes and litigation and increasing the compliance costs. So, for the personal income taxes, there were two channels, an old one with exemptions and a new one with no exemptions. There were the few takers for the new system as the relative incentives were not strong enough. So by lowering the taxes for the new system, the budget has actually moved it from the red channel to a green one. Over time, most people should actually start to switch. Now, with Dr. Nirmala Sitharamanji, fiscal marksmanship has been remarkably good and budget numbers have actually become transparent. This is also vindicated by the revised estimates of 2022-23 with a fiscal deficit GDP ratio of 6.4%, exactly the same as that in the budget estimates. So by the same token, the ratio of 5.9% in the financial year 2023-24 is actually believable. That is, the market borrowing is not excessive. Though 4.5% in 2025-26 will be a tough call by around 0.2%. But my dear friends, it really talks about our extremely far-sighted and visionary leaders who believe in the well strategized, laid out plans which are very, very future oriented, focused on holistic growth of all the sections of the society happening at the same time. And obviously, resource optimization is the key aspect to secure that particular balance in an economy. Now, my dear friends, do any of the assumptions in the budget seem unnecessarily optimistic? With the projected nominal rate of growth of 10.5%, that is hardly the case. Nor are these unreasonable assumptions about the tax revenue. In other words, there is not anything spectacular and flashy about the budget. There wasn't meant to be anything flashy. The budget is only a single instrument in what the government seeks to do. The government initiatives are not restricted to a single day of the year. These initiatives are to be carried out wholeheartedly and in a well-strategic manner throughout the year. So what the budget speech does is to basically set out a narrative and explain how the various government initiatives fit together as part of the overall jigsaw. The Saptarshis, the 7 basic strategies which we have discussed, the 7 core aspects to attain that particular economic balance, the holistic balance, if we talk in holistic terms, with a view of which the budget for this year has been framed, basically constitute that jigsaw. So while the Saptarshis change when the Manvantara, or that is the era, does change, the Manvantara is a long period of time. Since May 2014, the Saptarshis have actually been quite constant. It is only the nomenclature that has varied a bit. Furthermore, our respected and extremely innovative and well-strategic leader, our Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharamanji, further states that I forgot to identify the Angiras than the Vashishta and Pulastya, with Vashishta, a priest, and accompanied by Arundhati, reaching the last mile probably. With that famous progeny, Pulastya must be the youth power. As a residual, Angiras falls into place. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, we have been able to understand the beautiful similarity our respected finance minister has actually tried to draw between the 7 core aspects of the budget presented for this year and the Hindu mythological concept of Saptarshi. Only a well innovative mind can actually do this, and this is really fantastic, really fantastic. So the 7 priorities of the budget 2023-24 can be called as Saptarshi. This is a beautiful nomenclature by our finance minister. The first budget in the Amrit Kal will actually be guided by these 7 priorities that basically complement each other. That is, they are very well dependent on each other and act as the Saptarshi. Now, my dear friends, let's try to understand the basic fundamental foundation of our overall strategic framework. And this would really help to conclude our discussion. That is, one world, one future, and one destination. One earth, one family, one future. This is the really beautiful concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And this is India's call out to the world during its presidency of the G20 this particular year. The budget 2023 can well be an invitation to the fellow G20ers and the world at large to India's housewarming party. Furthermore, as the fastest growing major economy, India is actually the journey and the destination for the countries finding economic peace of mind hard to find even after the post-pandemic recovery. So, forming up a new world order basically means having the Indian economy firmed up. This line really speaks a lot about India's strength and the caliber it possesses. That is, firming up a new world order basically means having the Indian economy firmed up. So this is the inspiration, the real inspiration to this ET budget edition. Starting from the design of the front page and the illustrations through the paper. This is really fantastic. Hence, making Destiny India the world's destination India. So, my dear friends, we have been very well able to realize the strategic significance of one world, one future, one destination, and really, this is India's call out to the world during its presidency of the G20 in this particular year. The budget 2023 can very well be an invitation to the fellow G20ers and the world at large to actually India's housewarming party. So, respected ladies and gentlemen, we have been able to realize the true essence of India's leadership and really very, very perseverant attitude through this year's budget. And this is really very, very extraordinary. This is really very, very extraordinary. And I hope you have been able to realize the true worth, the real richness, and the extraordinary wealth possessed by the value-centric Indian economy. And my dear guys, I really, I really am quite amazed the way in which our leaders have tried to address each and every aspect in this particular budget, trying to secure the maximum possible balance in all the economic parameters, hence paving the way for India to actually keep shining as a bright star, and hence helping not only the national citizens but also the global citizens, the entire global family, to reap the fruits of prospering India. I really hope you would have found this session very precious, helping you to realize the true wealth possessed by our country. The very well strategic planned out framework by our leaders, who are so compassionate, so farsighted, so charismatic, so perseverant, and so dignified, at the same time so humble. Very beautifully demonstrating the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Very beautiful. So, my dear friends, I would like to conclude my today's session here itself, and this session holds a very strategic significance, and I believe that you need to listen to this session again and again and note down the key points, which will help you to ponder on the key aspects, on the key strengths, on the key on some of the key weaknesses, and how does India actually trying to identify the opportunities in the threatening situations. And this really speaks a lot about the continuous and consistent exercises being carried out by our leaders, that is SWOT analysis and pestle analysis. And really, this is the collective effort of all the respected ministries, eminent leaders, economists, and the governors, and the central bank governor, along with our respected finance minister, under the leadership of our respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, and obviously our extremely visionary leader, our President Srimati Draupadi Murmu ji. So really, it's an amazing moment of pride. And I really hope you all take very good care of yourselves until we meet next. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.